Nelson Peltz is finally responding to some of the mudslinging being done by Bob Iger. Let's talk about that on That Park Place. Hello, I am Jonas J. Campbell, an investigative reporter for That Park Place, and with me, as always, is my Wookiee co-pilot, Mr. Vash Sky. Vash, how's it going, man?
I have a life debt to you, sir. No, yes, I'm very good, very good. Doing okay right here, but there's been a lot of this proxy battle has gone very contentious, very very quickly. Is that right?
Yes, it has, and we kind of got to touch on this a little bit on That Park Place Live, but I don't think that we gave it its due. This filing from the SEC, from Trian here, this is a Schedule 14A proxy statement pursuant to Section 14A of the Securities Exchange Act of 1934. But what it really is that Nelson Peltz came out and said, hey, guys, let's talk about some of the issues that you are bringing up and why in the world you are acting like the way that you are acting. We're gonna skip through it a little bit. I'm putting it up on screen so you know that I'm not misquoting here, because we do like to show our work whenever possible here on That Park Place. But this is Nelson Peltz putting his hand up and saying, guys, why are you getting personal here when he's coming with facts and logic, as it were? Trian Fund Management LP has nominated two candidates, Nelson Peltz and Jay Rasulo, for election to the board of the directors of the Walt Disney Company. Trian opposes the re-election of two of Disney's incumbent directors. That would be Michael B.G. Froman and Mary Elena Lagomasino, my favorite spell from the Harry Potter books. Trian and Disney have been advocating for their respective director candidates and soliciting votes from Disney shareholders ahead of the 2024 annual meeting of shareholders, which will be held on April 3rd. On the Valiant Renegade channel. Oh, that's surprising that they put that in the filing. No, Valiant will be doing a live stream on that day, covering this live, and I'll probably be there, and you should be too. But Trian issued the following statement regarding Disney's recent communications during this election campaign. And I love the grown-up tone here from Trian. And Trian is disappointed that Disney is running a scorched earth campaign that appears to be focused on deflecting attention from the board's failures. If you'll notice there, he's not saying Bob Iger. He's not saying the Walt Disney Company. He's specifically targeting the board, a group of 12 people, which, of course, actually it's more than 12 at the moment because they've added two people and not removed one. Trian loves the Walt Disney Company and believes it has unparalleled assets and opportunities and every reason to grow and prosper. Would you agree with that, Vash?
Oh, absolutely, 100%. I mean, they have just unrivaled IP, right? So the potential for that is just astounding. They have all these kind of distribution methods, and their flywheel is unparalleled, largely by the media, industry. The parks generate revenue on top of revenue, and it's really something that nobody really has, at least in terms of the scale that they do. This company is poised for amazing success. It's astounding. It has not necessarily achieved that in recent years.
Yeah, I would agree. Those parks are, in fact, the statement by Trian that I always like to go back to is that they are over earning in the parks. Those parks are the crown jewel of the theme park space. And the reason that they're able to charge so much is because of the work that has been done ever since what was it, 1955 when Disneyland first opened, and
Absolutely.
81 for Epcot. No, 82 for Epcot.
82. Mm-hmm.
I always have to remember that one. So that alone, everything needs to be done to support those parks. But right now, the parks are being the support for everything else, and that's a problem. I think Trian acknowledges that more than the Walt Disney Company appears to be acknowledging that. There is hope, but let's get back to Trian's statements. So
Please.
Here, he says, but instead of recognizing our good faith and track record, Disney claims that we have a history of attacking companies and have infiltrated boards that we are seeking to create maximum disruption. More unscrupulous still is Disney's claim that our candidates, including Disney's own former CFO, are oblivious and that our ideas for improving the company are dangerous and inane. I would say that is uncalled for and is not responding to the actual the charges that are being laid out, and they're not doing a good job of actually responding to the ideas from Nelson Peltz. As we've pointed out here in the past, that if it's an idea that Disney does that also happens to be an idea that Nelson Peltz suggests, they say that they're going ahead and doing that on their own. If it's an idea they disagree with in any way, they're calling it outdated. They're calling him analog in a digital world, or dangerous and inane. I think that this is an instance where Disney is taking an advantage, and then they are going low and going for mudslinging instead
Oh,
of actually responding.
we've seen that with the iHeartMedia stuff and all of that, calling Jay unsuitable for the Disney board for a variety of reasons, including his the downturn in iHeart's business. Although we obviously there's context and nuance to that whole situation. And some people have been going after Jay and really kind of echoing some of these points right here about the Disney company and bringing their own. For example, they're talking about, well, look at New Fantasyland and the original ideas that he had for that, and Tom Sachs came in and completely upended the script. And it's like, understand, guys, like we have to look at the entire roster right here, or of who's being considered. Is Jay Rasulo necessarily worse than what Craig Hatkoff and Jessica Schell, Leah Sullivan, Logan Messino, or Froman? Like, if we need a government bureaucrat, we know where to go, right? we understand that whole thing. But Jay, he dedicated 30 years of his life to the Walt Disney Company. Is dedicated and is willing to dedicate even more of it to riding this ship right here. He understands what this company should look like. I mean, he thrived in every single role, at least enough to climb that corporate ladder like he did, and be recognized by his respective CEOs as a candidate worth promoting, all the way almost until the CEO position itself. And he's not asking for a CEO position. He's not asking even for an executive position. He's asking for a board seat, one of 12, by the way. Can we at least have somebody on there who knows the parks business, at least who understands what this business should look like?
Yeah, and I'll say that idea that it is to the idea here that they are trying to create maximum disruption. I would say that right now Disney needs a little disruption. That is
Absolutely.
I don't want to say the intent here is to destroy the company, but if they have made progress in the last, I don't know, since November of 2020, wait, November of 2022, when Bob Iger came back, it has been under pressure. And then Nelson Peltz coming back and saying, hey, do all these things, and then backing off because it looked like Bob Iger was going to do those things, and then coming back again under the auspices of, okay, well, they didn't actually end up fulfilling their promises here. Right. I think the pressure that is being put on them by Nelson Peltz being here is a net positive for the Walt Disney Company at this point. Other than the gunning of Disney Plus in order to make sure that they hit those numbers, and as Peltz has pointed out, a lot of those figures of pulling things off of Disney Plus, reducing marketing, reducing content spend on Disney Plus is something that might kind of cut them off at the knees there as far as actually growing Disney Plus. They're instead going to rely on doing these cable deals in order to bolster the numbers. Eventually, that will run out. They have to fix this problem before they run out of cable providers in the United States.
Yes, I don't disagree with that at all. But I do agree with your assessment. I think some other people are agreeing with your assessment that Peltz providing pressure on Bob Iger has been a good thing. I think Brayton even said that recently. Mickey Views, who is an excellent source for these kind of things. But
we would recommend anybody go, if you're not reading Mickey Views and watching Brayton's YouTube channel as we do. I would highly recommend that. He's got great analysis. So the thing that I want to point here before we look at a couple of other developments from other aspects of this proxy fight, in our view, this charged and disingenuous rhetoric, and I think this is as mean as he gets, other than, again, pointing out facts and logic, calculated to distract shareholders from Disney's poor track record and sidestep accountability. So too is Disney's focus on this campaign on Bob Iger and Ike Perlmutter. This election contest is not about Mr. Iger or Mr. Perlmutter. We do not oppose Mr. Iger's reelection. And by the way, if you want to look at the evidence, Perlmutter does not push CEOs out when he gets on the board. Sorry, Iger, but Peltz does not push CEOs out. he tends
Right.
to continue to work with CEOs. This is not something that he comes in and guts the company. He is not the CEO of Kraft Heinz or Mondelez or Cadbury Schweppes. That is
Right.
not the way that Perlmutter operates. And by the way, Iger is supposed to be leaving the company anyways. It doesn't sound like he's going to do that very quick. We obviously know that there are 4 candidates that are being interviewed right now. I would say 75% of those candidates I would not leave me with a good, positive, bullish feeling about the company, as Bob Iger would like to use that word.
Yes, and you know, even in that selection process right there, do we? I mean, we probably want somebody to be on that board that didn't necessarily give a you know what is it complete approval for like Chapek right before they canned him, right? We probably want somebody. Look, the board's not supposed to be a rubber stamp. This is kind of the
Absolutely,
weird thing.
absolutely. And these and we've talked about this before. This, you bring up a really good point. Bob Chapek was unanimously approved at the board retreat and then unanimously fired 6 months later. So I crazy idea, and this is even brought up in Bob Iger's book, that sometimes they will offer to revote and make it a unanimous decision so that they can say that it is a unanimous decision. That is actually not the great idea that they think it is from a PR standpoint. So here's the thing I want to point out before we move on to the next part of this. Every drop of every drop of ink Disney spills on these subjects appears to be an attempt by the board to avoid the topic at hand, the need for improved performance at Disney and a change in the boardroom. So I could not disagree with that there. But what we want to do is go over here to Yahoo Finance, this Reuters article. Disney receives endorsements from proxy advisory firm in board battle. These are people that are in support of Disney here. This by Svea Herbst-Bayless and Don Chmielewski. Again, forgive me if I mispronounce your name there. Walt Disney on Monday received a critical endorsement from a proxy advisory firm when Glass Lewis urged shareholders to re-elect all of the company's directors in one of the season's most hotly contested boardroom battles. Again, all of the company's directors. The recommendation, which can sway how investors vote in critical elections, dealt a blow to Trian Fund Management and Blackwell's Capital, as the two hedge funds argue Disney needs new blood in the boardroom to reinvigorate the internet giant. Glass Lewis said the company's most recent financial quarter serves as a promising indication of Disney's strengthening prospects. If the announcements that were made on that earnings call are any indication, I would question that. Again, no financial advice on this channel. Under CEO Bob Iger, the company is making strides to turn its streaming business profitable and make changes at the film studio, including parting ways with the president of the motion picture studio. No, that is not a good take on that. He was the president of live action for one small aspect of Walt Disney Studios. And if they're trying to paint this as the changing of the entire president of the motion picture studio, I would question that. Also, Sean Bailey was in charge of some pretty big productions, and I'm going to say it might have been executive meddling that got in the way there.
Yeah.
This is the first time hearing of this. $60 billion investment in parks over the next decade. I'm actually kind of surprised they didn't end up sticking the word turbocharge.
Yes, yeah, we hear that term used very frequently. Don't quite know what that means if we look at the numbers, but we hear the term.
Yep. Even last year, when Disney's stock price dropped, Glass Lewis said the company did not sit idle. It hired a new chief financial officer. Well, did they hire a new? They replaced the one that stepped down for health reasons. Oh wait, yeah, she was probably pushed out. Rationalized portions of its portfolio, refreshed portions of its creative staff, and appointed new board members. The refreshed portions of their creative staff, so far, they have fixed the live action, not fixed. They have changed the way the live action portion of their film slate works. They haven't fixed Marvel yet. They haven't fixed animation yet. They definitely haven't fixed Pixar yet. And we're waiting with bated breath to see what happens with Inside Out 2 here. Lucasfilm is still sitting idle, doing essentially nothing except draining money from the Disney coffers. So I don't see this as fixed. I see this as one small section of Disney's company. They changed one executive in the least important, forgive me for saying this, the least important aspect of Disney from a revenue perspective. This is not fixing the creative engine of the company. This is that you changed out the hubcaps and said now it's going to go 0 to 60 in 2 seconds instead of 3 minutes. This is not an effective change. And okay, great. Fox will do well. Disney is not going to do well with this change. We believe investors would be best served endorsing the incumbent directors at this time, the Glass Lewis report seen by Reuters said. The thing that I want to point out here, even Glass Lewis has said recent gains at Disney do not entirely paper over the less favorable aspects of Disney's and Iger's legacy performance. I would say that, yes, this is a legacy performance, and added, we do recognize there exists a notional thesis for shareholder intervention. They just don't think that it's necessary at this time. I don't understand that statement at all. And before I throw this to you, Vash, I want to point out that even Blackwell's over here is coming after the company for Iger's compensation versus the share price. Even this little tiny green section right here, they're all green, but these tiny light green sections right here indicate how much Bob Iger has made in salary, and everything else right here is how much he has made in quote unquote at-risk compensation. It seems to be doing pretty well, even when the share price has done abysmally. So forgive me if I say that Mary Elena Lagomasino, who is in charge of that compensation committee, is maybe she deserves to be questioned a little bit on pay. Maybe Michael B.G. Froman from the Council on Foreign Relations, who has served on no public company boards other than the Walt Disney Company, and apparently even the Disney Company admits that there is a personal relationship there between Bob Iger and Michael B.G. Froman. Maybe those two people don't belong on the board. Vash, wrap this up for us. What in the world is going on? Do you think Glass Lewis's endorsement is going to move the needle here? Do you think that Nelson Peltz is way off base by saying, hey, why are we calling people dangerous and oblivious?
Well, I think it's very interesting that some, Wall Street stalwarts are putting their endorsement behind Iger and what's been going on here, because I think Disney has done a very good job in necessarily doing what they've been told to do by some of these bigger firms, like let's say BlackRock and Vanguard and so forth. So it's like, oh, hey, let's keep this train continuing right here. But when you look at the fundamentals of the business and you look at the, let's say the nationwide perception of the business, hitting its lowest poll numbers ever recorded, you see a lot of the fundamental flaws in, let's say, their box office returns and how that affects their flywheel and so forth. You start to get a much different picture. So yeah, if Lagomasino's standing out checks, let's go ahead and let's keep her on, right? But it's interesting because these proxy battles via whether it's Trian or Blackwell have really brought to light some critical issues right here that I think are kind of turning the tide a little bit and having providing a much more closer examination on these things that necessarily didn't exist before. Like, for example, like Value Act, right? Where he's like, oh, Value Act, yeah, they're great. Let's have them work with Disney with this consulting gig. And then you find out, oh, they manage, hundreds of millions of dollars worth of, pension funds on behalf of Disney? That's interesting.
Yeah, and they stopped working on that apparently sometime while Chapek was there. But the question, of course, and Blackwell's brought this up of, okay, if everything goes well with this proxy fight, does that mean Blackwell's is going to be in charge of that once again and making money from the company once again? This was not disclosed by the Walt Disney Company. However, the Disney Company was glad to point out when they questioned whether or not Trian Fund Management, who used to also manage pension funds for the Walt Disney Company, whether or not they used to work with them, that was definitely contemplated in documents because they could use it as a question against them. By the way, they decided not to remove Nelson Peltz at that time from managing their funds. So they want to say, well, we thought about firing him, but we didn't. Okay.
Yeah. So is the company necessarily a vessel to enrich everybody else through, overinflated budgets at the box office, or value add deals behind the scenes and this deal and that deal, or is it an institution that is supposed to be making money here, driving shareholder returns, and also having some fundamental notion of long-standing success? That's really the kind of the critical question right here, and it definitely has. I mean, there's some people like Barron's, for example, had an article recently saying, hey, he might not get his board seats, Nelson Peltz that is, but he's already won in multiple ways right here. This additional scrutiny, I think, is a good thing overall, even if Trian is not necessarily successful in their endeavors.
Yeah, and I think that Nelson Peltz we're probably still going to be talking about Nelson Peltz sometime next year, because I'm not saying he's not going to win this time, but I don't think that he is going away. And there will truly be no faith left in this company if he decides to cash out all of those Disney shares here. If he exits and cashes out, I think that's a sign that Disney is probably not in a good space financially, because I think that this is bigger than whether or not he wants to, quote unquote, pump and dump a stock. I don't think that's what Nelson Peltz does. I think he finds weakened companies and tries to find ways to improve them. And the idea that they can't do that, well, maybe that's a bit of hubris on their part. But of course, we want to throw this to the commenters and viewers below here. There is a section, I don't know if you know this, that if you look below this video, where you can submit your own comments on the video. It's really cool. It's really neat. Sometimes I like to use it myself. If you want to throw your opinion in here, we would love to hear from you. That being said, you can also like or dislike this video. And of course, consider subscribing to That Park Place for all the news that should be fun.
Thanks for watching That Park Place News. For more information, consider checking out www.thatparkplace.com. And don't forget to subscribe, share, like, and send this out on your favorite social media accounts.